Have you always wanted a more energy efficient home, but perhaps you've been put off by the workload and the installation costs? Well, a new government initiative is just about to make it easier for your home to go green. And welcome to Homes and Gardens. I'm Vicky Lech. Now, the chances are you haven't heard of the Green Deal yet, but a crucial consultation period for this government has now begun. It plans to give homeowners the opportunity to make energy-efficient home improvements without having to pay directly for the installation costs. Well, here to tell us a bit more about it is Restoration Man, unfortunately not in a cape. I was hoping it would be like, da-da-da-da, Restoration Man to the rescue. George Clark, yes, see, we can work on that.
Shouldn't we?
Yes, work on it, it's good. George Clark and MD, definitely not in a cape, but probably deserving of one. From Pilkington Glass, David Pinder, welcome to you both. Thank you very much for coming in today. So let's have a look at what's coming up on the show. We explain exactly what the Green Deal is, the benefits it will bring to homeowners as well as the environment, and of course all of your questions will be answered here live. Yep, a good time to tell you we are totally live, so if you have any questions for George or David, use the box on the screen and we'll do our best to tackle them over the next 15 minutes or so. And if you're tweeting whilst watching the show, just use the hashtag StudioTalkTV and we'll try to give you a mention. Right, I think we should start at the very beginning. What is the Green Deal?
Well, the Green Deal is, in principle, a kind of financial mechanism, which sounds very tedious and boring, but it's actually quite exciting, to allow people to basically add things to their home to make them more sustainable. So it would be like insulation, double glazing, energy efficient boiler systems, and they wouldn't have to pay for any of those costs up front. That would be paid for by the industry, in effect. Which is absolutely incredible when you actually think about the words we've just heard. It's amazing. There are so many people out there that are well intended and they have these good intentions, but I would say probably cost is what stops people in their path a lot of the time. It's nearly everything. I mean, when I make the Home Show and Restoration Man, I go to people's houses and you go, why have you still got single glazing? And your boiler's 20 years old and it's absolutely knackered and you've got no cavity wall insulation in your property. Why is that? And they go, look, I'd love to do it, but I haven't got the money. And actually this just gets across that problem completely, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And we did some research recently, asking people, whether they intend to make improvements to the home to improve the energy efficiency. And there are so many people desperate to make these changes to reduce the fuel bills, but they're just worried about the upfront costs. So the capital cost of making those changes initially is too much. And with the Green Deal, they can start making the savings straight away and benefit from all the improvements that we can make to their houses.
So what are these improvements and changes that we're talking about? Can you pinpoint some of them?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of just touched on a couple already. I think, double glazing's a kind of obvious, easy one, really, and it's such a visual thing. I mean, most people look at their windows or out of their windows every day, and to just have single glazing there with condensation running down the inside and feeling freezing cold and drafty isn't great, really. So double glazing's one, cavity wall insulation, loft insulation, changing your boiler. I mean, you think about the amount of money that we spend on our gas bills firing up the boiler every day to heat the house, and if it's like 10, 15 years old, it's completely inefficient. So changing that is a fantastic thing to do. Solar panels, PV panels on roofs to generate electricity, and solar thermal for your hot water. There's all good stuff as well.
And these are, of course, big changes, and it's all well and good making these big changes in the home, but I know we were having a little pre-show chat and we were saying that actually it's down to the individual as well. You have to be savvy, you have to know what you're doing, i.e. don't walk around in the nude. When you're freezing cold, do put on your cardigans as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of it's a lifestyle choice. So when you've made the upgrades to your home, whatever the changes might be, then you can either take the benefit or you can continue doing things the way you did before, and get the benefit in terms of your fuel bill. But people will behave in different ways. I imagine initially they'll probably take the benefit and start wandering around in the boxes, but in the end they'll look at the bill and think, well, actually I should be a bit more sensible.
Put my socks on at
least. The way the financial model works, which I think is really clever by the government, to be honest, and I don't say that very often, is that in effect you're getting all of the stuff installed for free, and the idea is that you're then reducing your energy bills because of that product that you've put in your home, and then you're paying back every month through your energy bill for the capital cost of the installation, because you're not getting all this completely for free. Unfortunately, it's got to be paid for somehow, but it's basically just done through the savings that you're making on your energy bill anyway, which is a great model.
Of course, effectively you are paying for a product, but you're not sort of putting anything extra that you're not spending already, so it's not actually going to alter your outgoings.
No, and interestingly, the cost is, or the loan is attached to the property, not to the individual.
Yeah.
So it isn't in your name. So if you move properties, it stays with the property.
Yes.
So it isn't a commitment that you're making personally. So, it's so logical to get on and do it.
Absolutely.
Because you get the savings straight away, you get the benefits from having made that upgrade.
Yeah.
And the capital cost remains with the property and gets paid off over time with the savings from your fuel bill.
And there's also
it's a win-win, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's a thing. It's called the golden rule, really, which is a phrase that's going around on the Green Deal. The golden rule is basically that obviously to put a product in your house is going to cost X amount of money, which is in effect a loan that you're taking out on that product, and that has to cover its cost and pay for itself over that loan period. So the products and the model can't work unless the golden rule is applied, if you like.
That's correct, yeah. That's what the rule the government's applying.
Right.
The things for products to enter the Green Deal scheme. So
it's got to stack up financially.
Yes.
You're going to hear a lot about
the golden rule.
Because I know
it must be going around actually, because several of our live questions have come through, and the people know about the golden rule.
They do.
Good.
So word has got out. Are we talking mainly older houses and flats, or is this for anyone, anywhere?
It could be any house. It really could. I mean, clearly more modern properties tend to be better insulated anyway at the outset. So the older the property, the more likely you've got scope to improve it. But it can apply to any property, whether you own it yourself, whether the landlord owns it, or even commercial properties.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, actually, business. I mean, everyone thinks that the Green Deal is just about homes. It's not. It's for business as well, which is an amazing opportunity, I think, for all of us to make a change.
A huge opportunity. What about, just quickly going back to the older properties, what about people who are really into the aesthetics? So, I mean, you know all about that. What if they don't like the look of double glazing? Are there more options out there at the moment?
I mean, to be honest with you, there are. I mean, when I make Restoration Man, I'm dealing with old period, unusual properties.
Yes.
And sometimes, I mean, obviously some people like them to be sometimes modern, the way they're upgraded. There's loads of brilliant products out there where you can maintain a great look on your property. I mean, even though we talk about double glazing, which is an amazing product in itself, actually this guy's company, Pilkington, do some fantastic single glazed high performance glazing as well. Because if you've got a listed building, for example, a conservation officer might not let you put double glazing in.
Exactly.
But there are economical and environmental options to still get the look that you want.
We have a product called Spacia, which is a vacuum sealed double glazed unit. It's only 6 millimetres thick.
It's like teeny.
Which is the same thickness as a thickest single piece of glass.
You're like the James Bond of the glass world, aren't you?
I like that.
I think what is amazing about the construction industry, and definitely the glazing industry, I mean, it's moved on massively in the last 20, 30 years about building technology. And I think it can work beautifully, whether it's an old building or a new building, to be honest. But the most important thing is that it's sustainable.
Absolutely. And what people think that they know about double glazing may not be the case, so do your homework. Now, this isn't a new issue, is it? This is something that we've been talking about for years and years and years. So why is this all happening now?
Well, personally, I think that the good move about the Green Deal is that it's making a very clear connection about ecology and economy. And that might sound a bit highbrow, but actually no one's going to do ecological things unless they can afford it. If you haven't got the money, you're not going to do it. It's as simple as that, actually. So all of us, I'm sure everyone watching this now is thinking, I want to live a more green, sustainable life. I'd love to do my bit for the environment. I'd love to get my energy costs down. I'd love to live in a more comfortable, warmer home. I don't think anyone's going to dispute that at all. But if you haven't got the money, then you can't do it. Until now, and the Green Deal changes all of that completely.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about this run-up while we're waiting for this to all start? What are the simple things that we can all be more aware of? For example, I mean, they say don't leave your fridge door open because you use X amount of energy if you leave it open for a long time.
There's millions of things. How long have we got? I mean, there's tons of stuff you can do. I mean, turning your thermostat down by a couple of degrees, not boiling the kettle to the top when you only want one cup of tea rather than 6, have a shower rather than have a bath. You know, I mean, they're all very, very simple lifestyle choices.
He's got all the answers.
He knows his stuff. He knows his stuff. So do keep your questions coming in. Just a reminder, we are live. So if you do have any questions for David or George, they're sat right here. And if you want to tweet, you can. It's #StudioTalkTV, and then we'll get underway with your questions very, very soon. So what haven't we asked you? How are Pilkington involved? I mean, I probably should have asked you that before, but I've suddenly thought, why are you on the sofa? It's lovely to have
good
you
question.
Here. Yeah.
I mean, we got involved because we wanted to make sure that energy efficient windows are included in the scope of the Green Deal. So when the government first started talking about the Green Deal, we didn't hear any mention of double glazing or energy efficient windows. And I personally thought that was crazy because, you know, if you're going to super insulate your home and then effectively leave the windows open, it just seems a crazy idea to me. So we got involved by lobbying government, by talking to some of the ministers like Greg Barker, who's, you know, managing the progress of the Green Deal through Parliament. And talking to him about, you know, why haven't you considered double glazing? It's so important. And we did, you know, some research recently that showed that that was the number one thing that people actually wanted included in the Green Deal. I think 24% of respondents said double glazing's the thing. Probably because the capital costs are a little bit higher, so you need a bit of help to get over that initial hurdle to get the benefit of double glazing in your home. So that's why we're involved, because we want to make sure that windows are included.
Yeah, I think it's vital anyway. I mean, one of the things that we lose so much heat through normally is poor quality glazing.
Yeah.
You know, you sit next to a window which is feeling drafty and cold, and I mentioned before kind of condensation on the inside. You've probably been in loads of old buildings where you've got a little pond of water on your windowsill on the inside. Certainly in my student days, there was a lot of that going
on.
Ice on the inside.
I think I even had moss in one of mine.
Nice.
Was that mouse or moss? No, bit of both.
That's not about being cold, that's just dirty, actually. You just didn't clean properly, that's what it is.
I was too busy having fun. Now, am I right in saying that the business model's there, but we haven't actually ironed out all of the finer points yet? There's still a little bit of work to do.
To be honest, there's a lot of work to do. I mean, this is out to consultation with the government now, really. It's probably not going to be brought in until autumn 2012. You know, the fine detail of how it's going to be done exactly is still being resolved and needs to be decided on. But the principles of it, where they're at, it looks fantastic, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think lots of you agree as well. So it's time for your questions. So you've been sending in your questions thick and fast this afternoon, so thank you very much. Let's kick off then with Mark Creswell from the land of Facebook. Is it nice there? He says, we're about to install double glazing to a house that needs a lot of modernising. However, we can't afford to replace all the windows at the moment. This is interesting. Would the Green Deal help us out to get the whole house updated sooner rather than later?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, once they've had the independent assessor in and done the calculations to make sure that it will fit the golden rule, then there's absolutely no reason why that can't be part of the Green Deal solution for these people.
I mean, it's one thing to point out that this isn't just people going, I want insulation, double glazing and a solar panel, can I have the money please?
Yeah.
It's not going to be quite as simple as that, unfortunately. I mean, there's going to be a proper assessment carried out by someone who will come to your house, which I think is brilliant, actually, because I get bombarded with questions when I visit people's homes of, well, I've got a bit of money and I'd like to do an improvement. What should I do? What should I do first? And David touched on it before. I mean, there's no point in super insulating your house if you've got single glazing. So this specialist assessor will come round and say, well, actually, you shouldn't do that, but you should do this and you should do this. Do the calculation, make sure it ties in with the golden rule, then the funding's released and you get the products in there.
And we're creating more jobs, so this is great.
Yeah, I mean, David's got figures on the kind of glazing industry.
We've estimated that, you know, if we just got back from pre-recession levels, sort of, you know, got back to that level, from where we are today, that would create about 10,000 jobs in the window industry, so all the way from glass manufacturing to window installation. But if you look at the total Green Deal, I think the government's talking about 100,000 jobs being created in the private sector as a result of it. So everyone wins. The homeowner wins, the industry wins, and we create wealth for the economy.
But I think that's what's really exciting about this whole thing for me is seeing a real shift in the industry to say, well, how can ecology and sustainability pay and push the building industry on even more, really kind of stimulate some growth back in the industry, which is what we need. So rather than just saying, oh, well, use less, which we do a bit, we
Yeah.
recycle more and we try and use a little bit less. But actually, we need a much bigger fundamental change in how things are funded from an ecological point of view. And I think the Green Deal does it.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot stress enough how many questions we've had in, so I'm going to keep going through all of these. We really have been inundated. There's so much interest out there, so thank you. This one's from Kath Taylor. Kath said, I want to become an independent Green Deal assessor, but how would I get paid if the GD customer has an assessment and then changes their mind about proceeding with the Green Deal?
Again, it comes down to the ironing out thing. We're not entirely sure how all these things are going to hang together. I mean, that's really a question for government rather than for George or I. But I mean, I imagine that the independent assessors will be contracted to a Green Deal provider.
Yeah.
So that they're the people that will pay them.
Yeah.
It certainly will not be the homeowner, that's for sure.
Yeah. So in effect, the homeowner doesn't pay it, which is fantastic to think you can have an assessment done and a product installed, and you haven't partnered with a single penny. It's quite mind-boggling, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Kath, maybe you want to drop a note to the other David, the one in government, and he might be able to help you out with that. This is from Matt Higgs. Thank you very much, Matt. And Matt says, where the golden rule, he even did this, which I quite like, where the golden rule is not met for a particular technology, can a customer put down a deposit to allow the technology to meet the golden rule? Actually, there's 3 parts. Should I go through all this individually?
Should we do that one first?
Do you want to do that first, and then we'll rattle through the next part?
Let's do that, because our memories are not great.
Yes.
Well, from what we hear, yes,
Mm-hmm.
he can put a deposit down, he can top up.
Great.
So even though it doesn't necessarily comply or tick every single box to the golden rule, he can make it do that by
It
putting
does look
somebody
as though
down.
that will be possible. But again, it's not an act of parliament yet, so it's in consultation. But it is looking increasingly likely that will be the case, that you can top it up.
Good news. Secondly, what will happen if the expected take-up of Green Deal products are not as high as anticipated?
Added to the fuel bill.
We don't.
Really.
If the take-up, you mean nationally? There's not.
I think it's on the product. I think if the product doesn't pay for itself in the time.
If the product doesn't perform to the level of they expected, well, I suppose the first thing is the product will perform to that level because it will be accredited. It will be certified. So the product will be performing to the level that you expected. It's whether your behaviour has changed, whether the price of fuel has gone up. So there are other variables. So the saving that you will make relative to your starting point might be different, but it'll still be less than you would have paid in the long run otherwise.
But there is a bit where, and it's getting quite complicated now, but there is a point to this that if for whatever reason it didn't perform, but it should, if it's been tested and accredited properly, then you might just get a little bit extra on your fuel bill to compensate for the product, if you like, so it's all paid for. Does that make any sense?
That's
makes
quite
sense
a tricky
to
one.
me.
Matt, yes? Good. Okay, this one's from Denise. Thank you very much, Denise. Denise says, not paying directly means paying indirectly via our fuel bill, but what happens if expected savings don't materialise? Well, it's the same question, isn't it?
It's a similar sort of point in a sense that, I mean, it should materialise, it should work, but as David says, if fuel prices go up, then there might have to be an adjustment. It means that you are still being very sustainable in your living, you've still got an ecological product in your home, you've still raised your levels of comfort in your home, so you've got a nicer place to live. If it means that there needs to be a top up on your bill over that loan period to meet the shortfall of the loan, then so be it. It's a bit like an interest rate change fractionally on your mortgage to make sure you were covered on your repayments.
Yeah, exactly. David Rottlesly, have I said that right?
I like the accent.
Why did I do the accent?
I love
Rottlesly. They liked it. They think I'm right. That's good. How is the government going to make sure the installers of this green technology are properly qualified to protect consumers from cowboy installations that could be inefficient or unsafe? I think that's a good question.
They'll all have to be accredited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. They'll have to follow a code of conduct and they'll have to be accredited and they'll be checked through audits, spot audits from time to time.
It's like everything else in the building industry, whether it's products being checked or services being checked, you've got to abide by code.
They won't get away with it, not with Anne Robinson around, no way. This one's from Mike Duff. Thank you very much, Mike Duff. Is the finance secured against the property in capital letters?
Yes.
Property!
No, it is, and it has to be attached to the property really, because if you want to move house, you're not going to take that loan repayment with you if the product's still left at the house. It's as simple as that, really. So the next person who either rents the property you were in or buys the property that you were in, they're in effect kind of taking on that repayment through their bill, really.
Yeah, great. And final question from Max. Thank you, Max. Great in principle, but looking at the proposal, it looks a lot more complicated than getting fit for solar panels. Looks like a bureaucratic nightmare.
To be honest, I think any significant change in the industry, something as big as this, that is going to really, really change how we do things in homes, probably will be a bit of bureaucracy to start off with. The legislation's got to account for that, and that's why it's sitting with government at the minute. But it's not going to be a nightmare for people at home.
Exactly.
That's what I was going to say.
You don't need to take that on your shoulders.
Not for the homeowner.
For the, for Pilkingtons and other suppliers and producers, and for the the guys putting the finance in and making sure that the money's shuffled around on the bills. That's the stuff that's complicated. But that's all on industry. It's not on the people at home.
Absolutely. And it's always complicated with the red tape, but this is going to be so worth it. Thank you so much to both of you. Really informative, and truly we have been inundated with your questions. We've had